So as I'm getting progressively more bored with endgame content in BFA, I find myself doing a lot more gold farming, and I realise that when I'm doing my Mythic Plus, one of the things that helps me the most is my weak auras, and so I've been looking at ways in which I could have weak auras help me with my gold making too. That's led to me developing a few little weak auras that I thought I'd share with you today that hopefully will help you guys to improve your efficiency when gold farming the same as it has done for me. Now, my weak auras are obviously made with my preferences in mind, and generally speaking, people often tell me that my preferences are rather simplistic and straightforward, but I find this very helpful when it comes to an add-on designed to give information. You don't want it to be overly flashy, but if you are more into that kind of thing, then please feel free to take the weak auras that I'm providing in the description below and adapt them how you would like. As I alluded to just there, all of these weak auras that I'm showing you today will be in links in the description below for you to go and import into the game for yourself. So let's dive in. So the first one I'm going to start with is the one that is most essential to me, and that is what I've dubbed my Speed for Druid weak aura. Now, this weak aura is quite simple in its nature, but unbelievably helpful. And this weak aura is the one that you're going to see in the top left region of my screen. I'll highlight it here for you. And basically what this weak aura does is it shows me whenever I have a movement speed increasing capability available to me. So it is designed to be very noticeable with its bright glow, but also so that if you don't want to use an ability for any given reason, you can ignore it. But all this is essentially doing is providing a shiny glowing button showing you what ability is available to increase your movement speed. Now, this is designed for druids, and as a result it is only tracking the following: Tiger Dash, Stampeding Roar, Swiftness Potions, and Cat Form. You could adapt this to include a great many other things, but that is what this version of the weak aura is tracking, and it is also tracking it in that priority. So, in a priority system, how it will work is that if Tiger Dash is available, a solid Tiger Dash icon with a glow is showing. If Tiger Dash is in use, it will then show the remaining duration on Tiger Dash. If Tiger Dash is on cooldown, it will show Stampeding Roar. Then, similarly, if Stampeding Roar is in use, it will show you the Stampeding Roar symbol working around with the duration of the buff. At which point, if both of those abilities are on cooldown, it will then show you a picture of a Swiftness Potion. Just FYI, I've thrown the Swiftness Potion in here because I find myself doing a lot of Battlegrounds, and this is a very common reward, one that a lot of people often just vendor. But you may wish to just keep a hold of them, send them to your farming characters, and have it as an extra little speed boost. If you don't have a Swiftness Potion available to you, either it's not in your inventory, it's on cooldown, or anything else, and the other two abilities are both on cooldown as well, it will then show you to activate Cat Form. And finally, if you are in Cat Form, with none of those abilities left to use, the weak aura will not display at all. So, I do quite well when it comes to farming for using my abilities, but I'm definitely not using them on cooldown, and this has made my runs so much quicker. The advantage gained here is absolutely massive, because obviously the longer you sit with an ability up, the longer it's going to be that you don't have it coming back off cooldown for more uses. The quicker you use it, the more uses you will get per run of that movement increasing ability. Next up, we have my farming buffs. Now this is an unbelievably simple add-on, but again one that's going to prove to be just so very helpful. Now, on the screen this is the weak aura that you see directly below my movement speed weak aura that we just discussed, and this is a series of bars. Now these bars are essentially just buff tracking bars, but they are going to be just a little bit better than that. Primarily in that these are only going to be tracking Bear Tartar, Darkmoon Firewater, the buff from Sentinel's Eternal Refuge, and also the sprint buff that you get from proccing Bear Tartar. Now, the main function originally of this add-on was to provide me a very visual way of tracking these buffs, because a lot of the time it's hard to tell exactly when these buffs are going to be expiring to be able to keep them a good uptime. And also in the case of the longer buffs, particularly the mid-range buffs actually, things like Sentinel's Eternal Refuge, it's not always easy to track how many stacks you've got and when it's going to be expiring. This gives a really nice, easy way of being able to track these things. Now, I did also add some colour coordination into these buffs as well. So in the case of the Bear Tartar and Darkmoon Firewater, it has a series of colours that it uses, being if it is over 30 minutes, then it will display as green. If it is below 30 minutes but above 5 minutes, it will display as yellow, and as soon as you have less than 5 minutes on the buff, it will display as red. This is hopefully going to help be eye-catching enough to help remind you that you need to refresh your buffs. In the case of the Sentinel's Eternal Refuge, however, the colour is slightly different. It does not pertain to the time. The time is strictly going to be represented by the bar. The colour is actually representative of the stacks. The stacks display over the icon itself, but also the colour of the bar indicates whether you are at 5 stacks or less. If the bar is not there at all, you have 0 stacks. If you have 1, 2, 3 or 4 stacks, then it will display as an orange bar, and if you have 5 stacks, it will display as a green bar. Now I find this very helpful because when you are inside of a dungeon, it does often prove difficult to notice how many stacks you are on, as you do not transform into the Wisp if you are indoors. By being able to track this with this weak aura, I'll be able to know if I'm getting the maximum efficiency out of my legendary. Now, unlike the first weak aura, this one does have the advantage of being more widespread in its capabilities across classes, and as a result will display on any class, but the obvious limitation being that you must be able to have the buffs, most notably Sentinel's Eternal Refuge. If you do not have any of these buffs, they simply will not display. This allows for the ability to not get frustrated if you had a weak aura that flashes at you when a buff is missing. For example, I did have a one to track my Darkmoon Firewater before this that would flash repeatedly whenever I didn't have Darkmoon Firewater active, and that proved to be a problem as it was all the time. I would even have it flashing during my Mythic Plus runs. That's actually what sparked my going and making my own weak auras that I'm sharing with you today. And speaking of, we now have our final weak aura that I want to share with you. Now this is actually my favourite because it is the one that I have the most difficulty with being efficient with if I don't have the weak aura. And that is my Druid pulling weak aura, as I am referring to it. Now all this is it is essentially a cooldown tracker, and it's going to track the 3 cooldowns that I can use for pulling mobs that are of a low level when I'm running through dungeons. So for me, that's going to be War Stomp, Typhoon and Soothe, and these will glow whenever they are off cooldown and available for me to use. At any other time, the icon appears and will show me a visual representation of how long I have to wait. Now this is incredibly useful because not only are using these abilities more efficient than running through the mobs and trying to body pull when they are of a low level, but also by using the abilities that create a loss of control, you do also trigger your Sephu's Secret Sprint. And that is yet another movement speed increased ability that often goes missed, simply due to the fact that people aren't being able to track it. Now, I haven't set up a weak aura for tracking Sephu's Secret, there's plenty of them out there if you would like, but given that these abilities that I have are the only ones that are going to trigger the sprint from Sephu's Secret, I'm just using these on cooldown as it proves to be more efficient than waiting extra time for pulling mobs to then trigger Sephu's. So I don't find that too helpful, but if you do want a Sephu's Secret weak aura to go with this, then feel free to go and have a look and get yourselves one. It would potentially have some benefit to you. Now the final thing I want to mention is the conditions under which these weak auras will appear. Given that the first and third weak aura we discussed are druid specific, they will only load on a druid. It is as simple as that. But they will also only load when inside of instance content. Now this is because when out in the world, You are less concerned with movement speed capabilities because you are able to mount or going to travel form or anything of that nature. And similarly, when it comes to pulling mobs, generally speaking, there aren't too many circumstances when you're out in the world and need to drag mobs at a low level to a certain area. Now, you can always change this in the weak auras conditions if you would so desire to do so, but personally I find that having the extra available screen room when I'm not requiring these weak auras is one of the big benefits of having made my own over using somebody else's. Our second weak aura, however, will permanently be loaded, but will not necessarily display, as in order for it to display, the buff has to be present on your character for any given one of the buffs that is tracked. So this could have an adverse effect on performance of your machine, but it is quite unlikely. It is just the one weak aura, and I imagine many of you are playing with a great many weak auras anyway, but do bear that in mind. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. I do hope you enjoyed it. As I alluded to before, the links to all of these weak auras will be down in the description below. Feel free to use them and edit them for yourselves however you would like. And I do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider liking the video, it helps out a great deal. And if you would really like, feel free to subscribe to the channel. It would be absolutely fantastic to have you here, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.